There have been many invasions. The Nazis rounding up the workers of Poland for slave labor. German bands blaring their way down Norwegian streets. Belgian resistance lying in the dust. England thrown back from the continent. Stormtroopers climbing the Eiffel Tower to raise the swastika high above a captured continent. The Russian people listening to the broadcast which told them that they too were on Hitler's doom list. All these nations knew there was but one hope of survival: counter-invasion. On December 7th, 1941, America knew it too. This day and this beach were the pinpoints of time and land for which Allied leaders had aimed through the long years since Dunkirk, since Pearl Harbor. Counter-invasion was on. Our men were in France. They had crossed a few dozen miles of water. They faced hundreds of miles of land between them and Berlin. They faced a campaign, a prolonged and bloody campaign, in which this beachhead was only the first thrust. The point was to make this landing stick, to reinforce these troops again and again, to send our supplies out to them with the steadiness of a heartbeat. Here is where the story of counter-invasion begins. Here in the factories, at the workbenches where the tools are made, the tools with which we fight a people's war, the tools with which we fight a war to kill fascism, the tools for counter-invasion which protect the dignity and the hope of the human race for the rest of time. Here is an American task force, powerful, proud, mobilized for total victory, because each individual in it knows the vital part he plays. On June 6th, our fighting men approached their task with complete confidence in themselves and their supplies. The faces of these paratroopers were symbolic of the attitude of each soldier down to the last private who was beginning the perilous journey. He was a free man, superbly trained, brilliantly led, completely informed. He entered battle thoroughly instructed in the operations ahead. He was on his way. He knew where he was going and what he was to do. This, too, the Allied leaders had planned, knowing that of the millions of factors which make up counter-invasion, none is more important than the morale of the individual soldier. In World War I, as in other wars, the individual soldier knew little of his part in battle beyond his own single task: to advance, withdraw, hold his ground. These at once were his commands and his information. Overlooked was the necessity to inform him in the meaning of any large-scale strategy or tactics. Today, this soldier fights with new weapons. One of them is his knowledge of how and why his war and its battles are fought. This is military briefing. Here are soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, all being given every detail possible on the overall nature of each operation. Before they hit the beach, or take the air, or move across the sea, our men know the plan of their mission, the interlocking pattern of their attacks. This is a briefing for you, the American worker. Here on the work front, as on the battlefront, democracy gives the lie to Hitler and his gang, who consider it weakness to enlighten the individual, strength to enslave him. As in military briefing, where questions and answers flow freely, so there are questions workers would ask in an industrial briefing.
How many planes will we need for the invasion?
How many ships will we need?
How many trucks will we need?
How many ball bearings will we need?
How many shells?
How much oil?
How many radio tubes?
How much 100 octane?
How many bandages?
How many bulldozers?
In war, there are no absolute answers. Where we needed tanks yesterday, we need bulldozers today. Where we need bulldozers today, we need planes tomorrow. Where we need planes tomorrow, we need artillery for another tomorrow. There is no outguessing, no outplanning the fortunes of invasion. The only answer to give to Americans is enough on time.
From General George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff of the United States Army. A memorandum for the men and women of American production. The invasion now underway will demand the employment of men and materiel to an extent never before approached in history. Materiel will play a more important part than ever. The production of the tremendous quantities of ships, tanks, planes, and other weapons of war which our armies must have this summer and fall depends on your personal, individual effort. The losses in equipment will be tremendous. It will be expended in each bitterly contested mile. Our attacks can continue only so long as an uninterrupted flow of materiel reaches the troops. You have, therefore, a direct part in this prodigious fighting effort. We must trust you to make your contribution to the battle without stint or let-up. Signed, George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff.
Allied forces know the meaning of the word invasion. 2 years ago, British-Canadian forces raided Dieppe. This was a bold stroke, aimed to test the very coastline we now try again. And it ended with British and Canadian materiel smashed and scattered. British and Canadian lives spent on the pebbly beach. Many months ago, inspecting the Atlantic Wall, Marshal Rommel said, "There will be no evasive action and no withdrawal in my theater of operations. The coast and its deeply echeloned fortifications must be defended to the last." To what defenses did the Nazi soldiers rush? We had no blueprints, but we had more than a rough idea. We had our own ways of finding out. Commando raids and captured prisoners. Reports from secret agents. Hundreds of millions of aerial photographs. The enemy press. Captured German newsreels.